if there were two things that I would change to frag grenades right now to make them not only less powerful, but also increase the skill ceiling of them. One, increase the fuse timer. It doesn't need to be by a significant amount, but make it so you are vulnerable for at least a little bit longer when you're using them, and give defenders more of an opportunity to create engagements, especially down below for vert nades. And I would also say, and this is quite radical, but follows the philosophy of reload cancelling. If you pull the pin on a grenade, you shouldn't be able to repocket it.
We did it. 10 episodes. Welcome to the C Show, presented by Jake and Guzz. It's a big occasion. The 10th episode of the podcast, which means that we've followed through with our promise of providing the content.
We promised?
I think we did, probably, back on week one. Obviously, it's been a bit of a journey to honestly get here, from before stage 2 started to now with stage 2 basically wrapping up and the Atlanta Major on the horizon. We're kind of closing things down a little bit, but we do have a refresher with, of course, the new designer notes that have just recently come out. We'll be mainly touching on that today and some of the Patreon Q&A stuff, and I think next episode will be probably more focused on esports.
Yeah, I'm keen to jump in. Obviously, the designer notes are as controversial as ever. In saying that, though, generally from what I have seen, the community sentiment is actually quite positive around this particular patch and most of the changes. So we'll see how it plays out, but yeah, keen to dive in.
Well, we'll go straight into it. We'll go to the Frost rework, which I remember when we kind of spoke about it. I think it was actually episode 1 or episode 2. It was a bit of a while ago, and we were obviously pretty much in agreement that the changes were not good, and obviously from the test servers and to where it is now, it has changed a little bit in its rework, and clearly Ubisoft has heard a lot of the outcry regarding the changes for Frost and has tweaked it. And I think you've got it written down here as finalized. So is this it now? The changes that have come out for this designer notes, this is the Frost we're going to get moving forward? I
mean, it kind of seems like it. They made a lot of changes. I'm looking at the dot points here, a lot of different changes. I'll flash them up on screen for those who may be unaware, and I'll link the notes down below as well if you want to check them out in more detail. But essentially what they've done is they have removed the debuff when teammates now revive somebody in a Frost mat, so you don't have to worry about like the blood trail thing. And if you still want to self-revive, that option is available, but they have significantly nerfed it. Like the duration is now like 3 times as long. You move slower, you can't sprint, etc., etc. So they've refined it. They haven't completely backpedaled on it, but I guess they've probably invested so much time and resources into changing it that if they were to backflip now, it's a waste of that and would probably not look particularly good on the rework team. So they've committed to it somewhat, and I guess it is nice to have a better differentiation between self-reviving and having a teammate revive. I think you should always be rewarded for a teammate reviving you more so than a self-revive, so it makes sense in that regard. And I think the changes overall are positive. Again, probably didn't need to be changed in the first place, if we're being honest, but they have obviously at least taken on feedback and adjusted it accordingly with what they've got.
The big ones for me, I think, is the 2.5 seconds to now 4 seconds for the self-revive. So that's almost doubled. And then also the debuff time from 20 seconds to 60 seconds. So I think, you think previously, let's say Chalet and we'll say Frost mats, like in a library big window upstairs or whatever, and you're defending, say, kitchen dining. So you've got your extension over towards office and bedroom. If someone goes into that trap, like they were always just going to be able to self-revive 20 seconds. That's fine. No issues. Now it's like it takes a little bit longer. 60 seconds is a large portion of the round and the game itself where you're quite severely hindered. And so you're going to still want to wait for probably then a teammate to come get you, and then therefore not much really changes. Yeah. And so in the instances as well where that particular Frost mat is being monitored a little bit by a defender, not too much should realistically change then. If you want to confirm the kill, you pretty much still can. And if you do want to bait and see if they wait for a teammate to come by and come pick them up, then maybe you can get 2 for 1. So I like the changes. I think it'll be good. I think in terms of Pro League play, I don't know if then Frost is now going to see much of a difference.
Yeah, I mean, she kind of tapered off. And even in a high ranked level, I could probably quickly have a look at like the pick matrix, but I'd be willing to bet, she's not even, she might be just on the edge of the top 10, maybe just outside it. She's pretty much smack bang in the middle of the matrix. So again, goes to question why was it changed in the first place, which means it probably wasn't.
Well, I think it's ranked.
It's not
I think
about
it's a ranked or a solo mentality, right? Because if you think about it as if you're in ranked and you're playing the game and you're playing Frost and you're putting these mats down or whatever, and then say like you're on the other side and someone steps into the trap. So if you're the solo player that steps into the trap, who's going to come help you? In ranked a lot of the times, you got to call for that, you got to com for that, and that's just not something that's going to always happen. So the fact that you don't have to rely on others to at least be able to continue to play the game, you can get yourself up, but there is a cost to that. There is a debuff to that. It also means that, again, if you're in ranked and no one's around the area, you don't have to be sitting there on the floor. You can, there is that secondary option. So I like it from more of a game perspective. For Pro League, I don't think it'll make too much of a difference. So therefore, I'm okay with the changes now. I think originally when the initial changes came on the lab test servers, I was like, no, this looks like shit. But I think they've got it to a point now where I can kind of understand why it's being implemented. And I like the way that it's being implemented. So I think it goes from an L to a mid. I don't know if it's a W. I don't know if you'd be sitting there saying this is a massive change. Oh my God, this is so great. It's just a meh, kind of like maybe QO, quality of life change. If you're like a solo player that like steps in frost mats apparently a lot of the time, then you'll feel a little bit better about it. But yeah, look, at the end of the day, did it really need changing? Was this something they had to go digging into change? Probably not. They've done it. It's okay. It's okay now. It's possible.
We'll survive. Yeah, so that'll wrap up for us. The big point of contention, especially for Siege nerds, currently has been the frag grenade distribution, how powerful that has been, the popularization of operators over the last couple of years that have gotten them, your Thinkers, now your Yanas, etc., your Nooks. And so they've made a special note in this particular designer notes patch, whatever, saying that there's changes coming in this upcoming patch in preparation for a more definitive solution that intends to address the frag grenade issue. So the devs are clearly flagging and acknowledging that frag grenades are a problem. They don't give any insight as to what those changes could be or what they're going to be. So I presume they're, still workshopping them, refining them, whatever. And I would anticipate maybe start of next season or year 9 that we'll actually see it come through. So yeah, this is an intriguing talking point. We'll talk about who's getting and losing nades in a moment, but in terms of frag grenades, are they a problem? I guess that would be my question to you. Do you think they're actually problematic?
Well, what's interesting is when kind of looking at the changes that they're going with, I think the philosophy is should say entry fraggers have nades. I don't think so. I think you've already got enough firepower or you've already got a kit or a gadget that can help you get into good positions, and therefore to be able to get you into good positions to then use those nades is quite powerful. That's the way I kind of view it. Then if you look at, say, like a Finker, and obviously Finker is one that's now getting nades again, and you kind of think, okay, like, well, the Finker can kind of do that, but the Finker is more of a support role, and the Adrenal Surges should be used as a team-wide buff rather than a solo buff. Now, in ranked, I think you'll probably see Finker probably become a bit of a nuisance again in terms of that solo play, because now you're going to get these runners and gunners that are going to be like, well, I'll just go play Finker, boost myself, run in nade, right? So, but I think in terms of team pro play, if you think about what the Finker should be doing, which is aiding everyone else. The Finker should be aiding the Yanas and the Ashes that are going in, and then coming in from behind and using a nade as a secondary, and not maybe having double up on support. So you bring a Finker and then you have the Gon 6, so you can clear a lot of util, along with the fact that you're also aiding. So it's kind of like, do you want to have support to be like really hard supports and fraggers be really hard for fraggers, or allow this kind of hybrid notion where you say, okay, the Yana, we're not going to have the nades anymore, but we'll give you the Gon 6. So you can enter and help everyone else enter. Say, like, you get position in, you clear, bedroom, and you get rid of a deployable shield with the Gon 6. So you've now kind of cleared the way. That's your job. You're the entry fragger. You've entered, you've cleared a position, and now everyone can follow behind. Rather than, oh, we're going to get you in, clear a position, then probably kill someone with a nade, and you've done all this work. And it's like, yeah, so I think instead of doubling down, I like the approach that they're going with. Spread the love a little bit, make support have the ability to clear with nades, also get kills with nades, and also then entry fraggers, less lethal, but still with the ability to clear utility.
So I guess your issue is more so with distribution of the frag grenades as opposed to how they actually operate. Because the way I interpret that message is that there's going to be a fundamental change to the way in which frag grenades actually operate. Now, there was a nerf a little while back to reduce the radius, but I think with players getting more refined with things like yellow ping, we see that it's very difficult to miss a vertical nade unless the player up above is moving around like crazy.
But you're thinking about it maybe from both high level ranked and pro play. And I can kind of understand that perspective on it, right? And especially from pro league play, we get to see firsthand the pings come out, the positioning, and the idea going behind the process of clearing out certain positions and players with these frag grenades, the amount of time it takes to cook, etc. I'm also thinking about little Timmy. And little Timmy's probably blown himself up trying to cook a frag grenade a couple of times already. Now you take away some of that power. And so if you take away the power from the frag grenades, do you make it easy to use? Because, I mean, like, I'm not saying they're naturally difficult. You can learn it pretty quickly in terms of the timings and such. But it's not like an impact where you can just instantly throw it.
So if there were two things that I would change to frag grenades right now to make them not only less powerful, but also increase the skill ceiling of them. One, increase the fuse timer. It doesn't need to be by a significant amount, but make it so you are vulnerable for at least a little bit longer when you're using them, and give defenders more of an opportunity to create engagements, especially down below for vert nades. And I would also say, and this is quite radical, but follows the philosophy of reload cancelling. If you pull the pin on a grenade, you shouldn't be able to repocket it. And we see this so frequently in pro play. Oda from Bliss is a fantastic...
You can actually do it though, IRL. You can actually repocket. Nate, we got a little Kylo here. Come on, Kylo, out.
Hello, dog. But we see it all the time in pro play. Oda down below, for instance, for Team Bliss and O's, he'll lurk below. He'll get a yellow ping, and unless they are like 90% sure it's going to land, and that player, that defender's still, he'll cook it all the way to the end, and then just pocket it, and just keep doing it, and keep doing it, and keep doing it, and keep doing it. And I mean, I have no idea how frag grenades operate in real life. If you think you can,
put the pin back in. Let us know if you can or not.
I don't think you can. I feel like when you pull the pin out, you're fucking GG. You're gonna throw that.
Well, you hold the little clip. Is what it's called? I think it's called a clip. And if you're holding it, you can put the pin back in, and then you can let go of the clip.
Maybe, but irrespective, realism aside.
Not that I've ever used a hand grenade.
I was gonna say, when are you throwing frag grenades? Realism aside, I would think it would be an interesting concept that if you commit to a frag grenade, you have to commit to it, and it means that players that are good at landing them first go, and teams that are better at comming that would be rewarded instead of just being able to constantly cancel.
Okay, so you got no issue in terms of the radius and the damage.
That could probably also get another tweak, maybe tighten it again, because again, with yellow pings on the board, which aren't going to get removed.
Yeah. Well, I pose to you as well, the frag grenades. When you think about a frag grenade, in my eyes, and in most video games, they're intended to kill players. Is that the intention in Siege? A lot of the times, it's also used to clear.
It is now.
Utility.
It wasn't a couple of years ago.
But I feel like, what would you prefer it to be used for? Both? Do you want it doing both jobs? Do you want frag grenades to be able to obviously be clearing all this utility, which I don't know how you would make it not clear utility, but also have the ability to kill players rather comfortably? So if you don't want it to do both jobs, the only avenue I see is to reduce its ability to kill players.
Yeah, and how would you achieve that? Well,
reduce radius, reduce damage.
One, increase the fuse time. Two, prevent cancelling. Three, reduce the radius. And four, you could also look at adjusting the damage as well. Again, another radical point of view, but what if grenades couldn't one hit from below, or maybe not hit 3 armors from below, or something to that effect? Is that good or
too
bad?
RPG, I feel like, isn't it?
RNG.
The RPG, like it's almost like an RPG element to it.
It's an interesting discussion. I think it's certainly going to be something to track. I have absolutely no idea what they're going to do to frag grenades. It sounds like something decent is going to change. They wouldn't have mentioned it if they're not going to do something significant. So we'll see what that is.
Yeah, in preparation.
So
I think in terms of in preparation, the right thing to do is what they've kind of gone
which
and
is
done.
shuffle the distribution again. And it's, I mean, as we mentioned, Finker's getting them, Gridlock's getting them. Yana probably didn't need them anymore, so that was a good decision. Yep. I think Gridlock's now going to be quite powerful. Her primary is insane, and secondary gadget, whilst not the best, can still make things happen in this kind of meta with, covering sound and stuff like that. So it's going to be an interesting time. And Finker as well with the spear should be able to do pretty insane damage. Obviously, the LMG meta has been nerfed, so that's going to be intriguing to see if she ends up still being like a must pick like she was back in the day. But Yeah. Frag grenades are an intriguing topic.
I think Yana will be fine with the Gon 6. The Gemini's still a really strong gadget.
We might actually see the Geminis used more now, which is good.
Yeah. So we'll leave that there because obviously it's going to be a topic, I think, in the future based on what Ubisoft has basically said. Moving forward to a couple of the other changes, Warden probably being the next one. A change up to the armor and speed. So from 2-2 goes to 3 armor, 1 speed, which if you think about it, I actually think it probably brings Warden into what Warden should be doing rather than what everyone has been doing with it, which is treating Warden as this run and gun defensive operator. He should be this almost like turret. Put him in a position, lock down a certain position, you've got the glasses, and you should kind of stay in that position. So is this addressing really the run and gun meta? Is this the start of that?
Well, I don't think it's really in response to the run and gun meta as a whole, but it does address concerns that Warden was not being used for his utility at all. And I think the rationale behind this change and the change itself makes sense. Him now being a 1 speed means that it's going to be very cumbersome to roam, and we're very unlikely to see it. Now, arguably, if you're a Warden anchor, you love playing, power positions like Oregon Freezer or Bank Blue Stairs, whatever. In some respects, it's now actually a buff because you're going to get that extra HP and you weren't roaming anyway. So Warden now is actually still going to be a good anchor. And on top of that, he actually is retaining the 1.5. Now, I don't know how I feel about that. If the idea behind creating or changing him to a 1 speed is to, force him to anchor more, why does he need the 1.5? But that probably goes back to earlier discussions we've had surrounding the 1.5 and my argument that defenders probably don't need it at all outside of a couple of exceptions. And I don't think that Warden is one of those exceptions, but it sounds like as well the 1.5 is going to get some kind of adjustment going forward too, potentially. So they're sort of just keeping it for now. They'll let it settle, see how he performs as a 1 speed, because I assume, as the rank stars love to do, they're just going to gravitate to somebody else, probably like Thorn or something, to facilitate the 1.5 run around.
Yeah, and I think what you're going to end up finding with the Warden now is, especially from, again, pro perspective, is you'll still bring him. It's just a different player will probably actually control that particular operator. So you're not going to put your fragger on the Warden now. You might put your more not hard support, but basically on-site defensive player who can lock down a position on the Warden and put the Warden in a position where you think those entry points are going to obviously be exploited, where the flashes and the smokes and all of that are going to come from. So I don't want to go as far to say it's a buff, but I feel like it's going to, in theory, be a buff if you play in that.
If you play him properly. If you're playing as intended.
If you play him as a lockdown defender, holding a particular angle and holding down a particular entry point, it's a buff. It's just a buff. You don't need the extra speed, but the armor's a nice bonus. If you want to play the Warden, where you're moving around and you're playing, let's say, a lurk roam up above, and you want to try and peek certain positions, then push downstairs, and technically it's also then a nerf in the ability to transition to a different point on site, sure, then that's a bit of a nerf. So overall, in terms of the Warden, I think it's a good change because I think it actually looks at the operator and says, we don't like him being played this way. We want him to be played this way, so we're going to encourage people to play him this way. And I think that's fair enough. I don't think every single operator needs to be having the capability of running around. And the irony is it kind of goes back to our previous episode about should every operator be, 2 speed, 2 armor and whatnot. So I think this kind of probably highlights why that's kind of a difficult thing to have, because certain operators are just designed to be played a certain way.
Yeah. I don't really have much more to add. I completely agree. In terms of players that can lock down site, Tachanka as well is getting a bit of a buff as well.
Yeah.
So the DP 27 is getting a damage increase from 49 to 60.
Which seems big, but I don't know how big that's going to be.
Yeah. I mean, time to kill. It lists the time to kill for a full health operator. So like a 2 armor is 0.218 milliseconds, which is allegedly is faster than average. I don't know if Tachanka is now going to be in the realm of contesting smoke for like plant denial or area denial. I think that smoke is still much more adept in this meta because you throw out the smoke, you leave it, you let it rest.
Shotgun
you don't
is
have
also
to
strong too.
Yeah, and then you gun up. It's not like Tachanka where it's kind of that grim, awkward situation where you have to flip something out to get your util out, and then it's cumbersome to then get your gun back up. And if you're playing Tachanka and you you're trying to hold something down, and you misplace like one flame, then you just get rushed and you're left in an awkward position. So I don't know if Tachanka is fundamentally going to, shake up the meta much, even with this damage buff.
It's completely dropped
But
off of
I think-
bank basement as well. We don't see Tachanka
Yeah,
anymore.
like, I don't know. There needs to be a change of some sort, because Goyo is just far better in that regard in denying area like that, and so too is Smoke. So that's what Tachanka's up against, and I don't think a damage buff is going to
How would you
make
fix
up
him?
for that.
What would be some tweaks? Because obviously you don't want to go too massive, and then he
Yeah.
ends up being so much better than everyone else that he is the number one. You want them to be balanced and sort of picked for different situations and scenarios. What would you change?
I think Tachanka maybe needs less ammo, but the flames last longer, or something to that effect, or it's an under barrel attachment, which I know is an easy go-to that I always say, but you need to be more gun up and less util out, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Especially in this matter. It's not like old days where you could kind of like sit back and chill. Like, you think back in the day of like Bank, where Smoke would just like sit all the way back and just throw them in, or even Tachanka when he was kind of first introduced, you just sort of sit back. The attackers are far more active now, and you need to be ready for an engagement at pretty much any moment. So that's why he's not viable, and addressing that would take probably another rework.
All right, so that's pretty much the end of the designer notes for 3.3. There's not much else really to go over. In fact, I think we've pretty much touched on just about everything.
It's out of sense.
Yes,
Recoil
sense,
buff.
recoil change.
PDF, I mean, could frag out on that, but good luck.
That's
The sense gadget is too inconsistent. So.
Yeah. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Everything else we have touched on, and I think clearly this is, as is the case typically with a lot of these kind of mid-season patches, nothing too crazy to change things. I don't think we'll see anything massive until season 4, which is when maybe those frag grenade changes might come into effect. Maybe after
I reckon it'll be a year 9 reveal at SI kind of deal, probably.
Right.
If I had to guess.
You're much better.
I don't know. That's
You're
not a
much better
league.
at guessing that than me. And we also kind of probably just want this to be a bit of a shortened episode as well. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So, and it also gives us more time for our exclusive question from Champros once again, from our Patreon Q&A. If you guys want to obviously get involved and have some questions answered in these kind of episodes where we've got a little bit more time to go over them, Patreon link up above, down below, all of that. Get involved. We, of course, love all of our supporters, and it means that we can get your questions across, and obviously we can get access to you guys as well, and you guys to us on the Discord. The question for today: why Siege is your chosen esport to pursue a casting career in? I think I'll get you to answer your part first, because yours is actually far more directly related to Siege than mine.
Well, yeah, I mean, we have very different paths. And I think we would probably both say that neither of us actually chose, I mean, esports more broadly maybe, but certainly not Siege to be kind of a career of any sort. I started back in started very early 2019, because I was Twitch streaming and stuff, and I thought that would be a cool way to get community engagement and stuff to do community casts. So there were these things called EGN Pug Nights, which I think Ubisoft Australia at the time supported a little bit with some giveaways and stuff. And basically just pug teams would rock up on the night, and I casted them, and then I kind of just took off from there. At the time I was studying at uni, and I was through till the end of 2020 or 2021, and I was going to actually go on and do lore, and now I'm a DGen. And yeah, it just went from one step to another. I ended up getting approached by a product manager at ESL Australia at the time to then do things like Challenger League, etc. So tier 2 at the time, and it was just really a natural progression. I never went out of my way to contact anyone for paid work or whatever. Kind of just came my way, which was very fortunate for me. And yeah, just riding the wave and seeing how long it lasts until it crashes and burns or gets better. Who knows? We'll see how it goes from there. But I didn't go out of my way for this to be a career, but I'm very fortunate that it's Siege, because it's a game that I have been playing for a very, very long time, and one that clearly I enjoy. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing it. So yeah, stark contrast to you.
Yeah, mine's a little bit longer, and I won't sit here all day going on about really my 7
back in 1963
my 7-year journey. I started casting in 2016, which at that point Siege was completely irrelevant. So
Jeez.
before my time. And from that position, I just kind of just went through it as a hobby first. I was in university, and I was just able to kind of do it really as then part-time work. Probably around 2018, 2019, started to actually be able to get some work and make some money. And I didn't start Siege until just after COVID, which is when I got contacted by, I can't remember if it was James. I think it was James.
Yeah,
So Dev
Dev
Marta contacted me. They were basically just looking out to see do they want to get an experienced caster and help them learn the game, or get a Rainbow Six caster in the region, but maybe then they'd have to help them become a caster. So they opted for the first one. They opted to find a more experienced caster who'd done work elsewhere. For those unaware, I obviously at the time had just come back from doing the PUBG Global Championship, and so I felt a little bit experienced. And what was that, now 3 years into casting, and had obviously done some really good things at PUBG. And they noticed that, they saw that, they wanted to see if I would get involved with Siege, which I was more than happy to, because I actually had been playing Siege from 2018. So it was a game that I had already been playing, and I actually did an interview, I can't remember who with, in 2019, and I got asked at the time if there was one game in particular that casters should look to get into in Australia, in this region. I said Siege, because I felt like the casters were honestly shit.
Thanks, mate.
Well, no, this was even before you were involved. You weren't even in. I won't name names, but so I said that I felt like there was some spots there, and clearly within the next
You went wrong.
within the next 12, 16 months after that interview, those spots were quickly filled, and I was fortunate to be one of them, and to be one of the last ones. Obviously, Rob had just got on board as well.
And Dev had fucked off to EU.
Yeah, Dev had left, and then from basically a position where I wasn't sure what I was going to be doing going into COVID, as a lot of people probably would have felt, to then having this new streamlined income of work from Rainbow Six Siege. It really did kind of change my life around, and clearly now 3 years later, it's the biggest title that I do, and it's the one that I love doing the most, and it's been a really good turnaround for me. And now going on to 7 years of casting, it's basically my main game. So we've been fortunate, obviously, to do SI from home. We did a major, so it's all coming leaps and bounds, slowly but surely. But yeah, it's an interesting question when you say, well, chosen esport, for example. You don't choose in this industry. No one gets to choose. Whether you want to do it or not, you still don't get to choose.
I think you make your own luck in life, but esports is especially prone to, you have to. I mean, everyone gets lucky in some respect, I think, in their career to get to the position they are, especially those that are quite successful. But even more so, I feel, in esports, you just have to be in the right place at the right time.
Yep.
You got the knock on the door randomly one day, which I'm sure you were not expecting. I got a random DM from a product manager one day, and never thought it would lead to anything to this level ever. To get to the point this year where we get fucking flown to the other side of the world to cast this game. When I was 15 and playing the game for the first time, I could never have imagined that. So you kind of just fall into where you are, and who knows, next year or in 5 years time or in 10 years time, we could still be doing Siege. We could jump onto X-Define or some game that's never come out, or a combination of a couple games, or we could be completely out of esports. It's incredibly volatile. So yeah, I wouldn't say we chose Siege. Siege chose us.
That's actually very much spot on. Really well said. Or you could say Dev Marta chose us.
Well, he didn't really choose me, but he chose you.
He did choose me.
You were the chosen one.
Yeah, was the chosen one. All right, we'll leave that one there. Thank you so much, Champros, which, for what it's worth, that was actually supposed to be part of our exclusive content.
No, we'll get it out here.
But we'll get it out here, and probably just gives everyone a bit of a look into sort of a bit more of what we kind of get up to, I guess, behind the scenes on Patreon. If you want to get involved and have access to more content kind of like this is typically the softer side. Usually we're a little bit more...
We're a bit more PG than we are over on
probably
Patreon.
A bit more M.
Wow.
A bit more M on the Patreon, a bit more PG here. So either way, big thank you to Champros for that. Obviously, we've got more Q&As to kind of get through, and I think we'll probably do that in the exclusive episode.
We'll find one. Yeah.
For today's one. But that will probably wrap us up for today. This one to be a little bit more concise, shorter, and hopefully not drag on too long. Just a quick go over the notes. And
Big one next week, though.
Yeah, big one next week. So please stay tuned for that one. Far more esports related. We'll be talking about things like the major, obviously wrapping up stage 2, all of that and more on next week's episode for episode 11 of the Siege Show, presented by Jake and Guzz. We'll see you next week.